So how did you get into ocean observing as a career?
As a career, when I was 5 years old, I lived near Cape Cod, and I went with my parents to Woods Hole one day and saw those ships sitting there going out to explore the seven seas. And I said, "Mom, I'm going to be an oceanographer. I'm going to do that." That's actually a true story. I got interested at a very early age in this idea of going to sea and exploring the seas. So there was actually never any doubt in my mind that I would do that kind of oceanography, that kind of a go-to-sea, hands-on kind of oceanography, rather than doing lab work or computer modeling or that sort of thing, was always what I wanted to do from the beginning.
Awesome. And how would you describe your current interests in ocean observations right now, specifically?
Right. Well, I did that. I spent the better part of 30 years planning expeditions and going to sea all around the world and collecting oceanographic data. And that was a good run. I enjoyed the heck out of that. But it came a point where I felt like I'd kind of done that, and it was time to try to make some different kind of a contribution. And the new integrated ocean observing system seemed to be a place where I could make that kind of a contribution to really get in there and roll the sleeves up and try and make this happen. As there were 100 other guys just like me who were out there on the West Coast making observations, but there seemed to be an inadequate level of effort at integrating those observations and trying to use them all together in one place to have a more holistic understanding of the oceanography on the West Coast.
Fantastic.
And I think that's what people are doing just as well on the East Coast of the Caribbean or the Great Lakes, and any of the other RAs.
All right. Sounds great. Now, specifically, how does your research or your findings of what you do in ocean observations affect society or individuals, in their personal lives, so to speak?
Well, that's a real challenge we face right now, is trying to get people in the non-coastal states to have an appreciation or a belief, if you will, to kind of climb on the bandwagon of what people are already doing in the coastal states and believe, in fact, that the oceans matter to them. If you live in Kansas or Nebraska or Iowa or something, so, if the only new money comes from Congress, and if you're going to pass any bill through Congress, it has to have very wide support, including the non-coastal states. So I think we need a lot of effort in that department. So what's the answer? What are those things? And I think climate change is the issue of the day. Even as much as the economy, people really seem to care about climate change now. And there are links that can be made between what's going on in the ocean and weather patterns over the United States, and things such as the big floods we recently had in the Midwest, all these unusual weather patterns, whether it's going to be a hot year or a dry year, or whether you plant lettuce or soybeans or corn. Actually, what's going on in the ocean does matter. It does play into these situations. And there's still a very big education hurdle there that needs to be cleared to really convince people in the non-coastal states that what's happening in the ocean affects them just as much as whether somebody's getting flooded in the Sacramento Delta, for instance.
Definitely. Great. What are your primary sources of satisfaction in this job, whether it be on a daily basis or a long-term situation?
Well, every now and then we win one. We work real hard to try to bring the community together, to have everybody kind of speak as one voice and rally around what we think are the big topics of the day. And I've been really pleased by the way the CeNCOOS community has done that. Whether it's from San Luis Obispo all the way up to the Oregon border and the Humboldt State folks. We have wide representation on our board, and I expected when we were having meetings to try to decide what we should propose, what we should do, that it would be like herding cats, as they say, and that it would be a really difficult and contentious thing. In fact, it went really well, I thought. And people rallied around this idea of studying the marine protected areas along the California coast and everything that involves. And people really got behind that, and as a group, the whole ocean community, I think, has been really great and really receptive to these ideas that we all kind of, the way to make progress now is to have teams of people that are really focusing on certain things, like the MPA issue, like climate change, and associated problems such as sea level rise, coastal warming, and so forth. So, trying to get everybody to agree what's important and to make their data available in real time. This is a whole new paradigm, really. People used to go out and collect their data and sit on it for 2 to 5 years until they got the papers written, until anybody else would ever get to see the data. So it represents a major shift of the whole ocean culture, this idea that you're going to go out and make these observations, and it's going to be available to everybody right now. Wow. But more and more people are coming around to the idea that that's a good thing and not a threat to their career or something like that.
Fascinating. Along those same lines, what might be some frustrating components of your career or your job, either daily or long-term?
Well, the biggest frustration, without a doubt, is just the funding. In all of science, really, the country's kind of in a state of crisis there, which I believe could ultimately lead to economic non-competitiveness. I think most people haven't really considered the long-term impacts of failing to invest in basic research.
Right. The
most satisfying thing is when we actually get a grant that allows us to implement some of the great ideas that people have, and we know what we want to do, and a lot of really good people have thought about it. So when you finally get some money and you can get out there and actually do it, I'd say that's the most satisfying part.
Cool. Awesome. Tell me about some obstacles you may have faced in obtaining a career in the ocean world, the ocean sciences, or the ocean observing sciences particularly.
Right. Not too many for me. I think I was one of the lucky ones. I sort of came up in the golden age when the funding was pretty good and we had resources to plan big expeditions and go to sea and do exciting things. And I think relative to today, I had a relatively easy go of it. Today, I think kind of getting started, getting your toe in the door, and getting your first grant and that sort of thing is the big obstacle that people face, and it requires patience. I think most people become oceanographers still because they love the idea of doing something good for science and the ocean and the environment, rather than to make a bunch of money, right? They're really smart people. They're all smart enough that if the goal was to make money, they could be out making a lot more money than they're making now. So their motivation is different for the most part in terms of why people pursue a career, in the ocean sciences. So it takes you a long time to get your PhD, and then you'll probably have to have at least one postdoc after that, maybe 2 postdocs, until you get to be an assistant professor, and then it'll be a few years after that till you really start making a decent salary when you're 40 years old or something, instead of graduating from college at 22 and immediately going into business.
Right.
So, people that pursue that option really love science. They like the academic lifestyle. They like what they're doing, and the good thing is they look forward to coming to work in the morning. I think most oceanographers really like what they're doing. People ask me that. I'm fond of telling them that there's always room at the top. Or, I'm inherently an optimist rather than a pessimist, clearly. But, in any field, even if it's a really tight field, even if it's the fine arts and it's music or something, or science or whatever it is, the best people will find jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you really want to do it and you're dedicated to doing it and you're really good at it, I believe that you can still find a job and do it. So, you have to hold yourself to a high standard and not give up. But the field is tight. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more quantitative you are, probably the better. That helps you find a job.
Mm-hmm.
If you have more quantitative skill, mathematical skill, and that would be true also in biological oceanography just as well as physical oceanography. People that can do ecosystem modeling, for instance, are certainly much greater demand than people that are just looking at individual organisms or something like that. So that definitely helps.
Sure.
But don't give up.
Great. Good advice. Thanks, Steve, for the interview. Appreciate it.
You are welcome.